Welcome everybody to Big J's World. This is Big J again. Today we have Miss NB McCall. She has a book coming out this Tuesday. So if you want to introduce yourself, talk about a little about how your writing started and a little bit about the book.
Okay, hi. So I'm a Seattle-based author. I started writing actually back in high school, and I started doing it as short stories for my advanced lit class, just to do like extra credit. And I was an avid reader, so every time I'd read a book, I would be like, how would I actually write that story myself? And so then it just kind of went from there. So I've just enjoyed writing ever since.
Awesome. So you said it started in high school, you said?
hmm
Okay. So were you just write random things, or did you write like little short stories in high school?
Sometimes it was prompts debating on like if the teacher wanted us to do like little, short stories. And then at one point she liked my stories enough that she told me that I could write like a little bit expanded ones for her.
Hmm.
They even put it in our school newspaper one time. So that was kind of fun. And then sometimes I would just write my dreams down and share it with my friends. And they were like, this could be a cool book idea, which I still have them filed away for maybe later on.
All right. Okay. Keep a little stash back there, just
Yeah.
like our well, like Frida. Geez, God knows how many books she has stashed away. It seems like she's coming out with a book every 3 months. And the same for like Stephen King. It's insane. Like, how do you write books and just have them come out every so often?
I don't know, but I really hope to get to that level one day.
I think there was an interview it was an interview from either Today, the show Today,
Mhm.
or one of those Sunday shows that they have with from CBS or wherever they have the show on. A person went up and interviewed Stephen King and actually asked him, how are you able to pump out so many books? And he says he writes 6 pages a day.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know
I feel
how.
like if he's doing it that often, I feel like it might even be more than that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know. That man. Sometimes his books are great. Sometimes it's like, all right. At this point, it's just word vomit. Okay. All right. So, what is the title of your book, and how did you come up? What was the idea of writing this book that's coming out on Tuesday?
So it's called Eve's Dawning. It is the first of a trilogy. And the name of it came because the main character is Eve, obviously, and it's about her psychological journey of like who she actually is. So, like, dawning ended up being like just a word I kind of landed on because it was like she's just figuring it out.
Okay. All right. So, if you could design the ultimate dream edition of this book,
Mhm.
what were you doing for like sprayed edges and foils?
I would really like to do, so there's a scene in my book that's kind of like a turning point, and it's at a masquerade ball. And I thought it would be really fun to have like a masquerade mask on there and maybe like even like the ostrich feather plumes off to the side of it. I thought that would be
Mhm.
really pretty, and maybe making like the mask itself gold on the sprayed edges. So that would be really pretty, and have the rest of it like dark blue because that's kind of like black and blue is the theme of my book.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, blue is my favorite color. So
Okay.
just
Are you?
having blue, yeah, already hooked. Already hooked. Blue and gold. That really looks very elegant, I would say. Yeah, really, really elegant.
Thanks.
Would you like have like character art in between the cover and the first page, or how would have you ever
I've
thought
thought
of that?
about that. Actually, my friend Ray, she just did character art for me for my main characters, and it is pretty awesome. So I think I'm going to include some stickers and stuff when I do like my boxes and everything, and when people buy my book to send it with them. It's really
All
pretty.
right. People are going to enjoy it.
I
They're
think
definitely going to enjoy it.
so.
So, does your debut book have a warning label and a front cover? Is it like any like tropes that people should be aware of before reading a book?
Not necessarily on the front cover because my cover is quite beautiful and I don't want to ruin it, but I do have a
Right.
whole page of trigger warnings at the beginning in my front matter.
Which are the few triggers that people should be aware of?
There is graphic violence in there. There's some parts of abandonment, if anyone has any issues with that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah, those are like the main ones. There's like various levels of violence in my book,
Right.
and mentions of things, not like gory, but just, you never know what anyone's trigger is going to be. So I'd rather put it in
Mhm.
there just in case so they're not taken unaware.
All right. Okay. So we talked about, trigger warnings.
Mhm.
Uh, what are like the three top tropes that you have in the book?
Morally Gray is like my top one because
Yeah.
my female character is an anti-hero to the core. But when my arc readers say that like they even though like she's dark, like they want to still root for her, so that says something.
I mean, something about a morally great character we just want because it's probably something that me myself being I can't be morally gray.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean the black or white, but it's just something reading about it. It just gives us that I don't know that thrill of
Well,
it.
something outside of our norm. So,
Exactly.
you know. My other two is I have a love triangle. So, like, one side of that is a lovers to enemies, which usually it's enemies to lovers, but mine is a lovers to enemies. And then the other side of that is a slow burn.
Slow burn. Okay. Oh. People love a slow burn.
Yep.
Um, I am trying to expand myself by doing a slow burn. Sometimes it doesn't succeed, but I am trying very hard. Let me tell you.
I feel like mine moves faster
Yeah.
because there's a range of what people qualify, and I had to like
Mm.
double check with some of my peers and be like, if it happens in this way, does it still qualify? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. I was like,
Right.
okay. I feel like it's a little
So,
fast paced, but who knows?
right. I mean, everybody will read it differently. Some
Mhm.
may think it's fast paced, others may think it might be a slow burn. Maybe you have something like in between. It fulfills everybody's interest on reading the book.
Yeah. So far, I've had a good response to it, so cross my
Awesome.
fingers.
Right? Right? So, writing a book, how long did it take you from start to finish, to write the book? And was there any type of like, not trouble, but like some some parts that dragged out more than others?
For sure. So technically, and I don't know if you already know this from seeing my page, but I actually published this as a short story back in 2016. It took me about 2 weeks to write it, and I just threw it up. And I kept getting a response back saying, I love this, but I want more detail. So within like a couple months, I took it back off and I expanded it. It took 9 years. And
Oh
that's not
wow.
to say I was working on it constantly over that time. I
Hmm.
had a lot of life happening. I left where I was originally living, moved across the country to Seattle, had, a career that was very dominating and time consuming. So I didn't feel creative during the first couple of years I was here. So I didn't touch it for like 3 to 4 years. And then when I picked it back up this past fall, I was like, I need to make this happen. I want people to read this story. So once I had that motivation, it kind of like went real fast because that was just in November. And here we are in July with it finally re releasing.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh wow. Did
Yeah.
you have like did you have like any challenges like expanding the story? Was there any like scenes that were difficult to write than others?
I didn't I had to make sure that I like filtered it. I didn't know how the reading community was going to take it. So like I wrote it darker than it is, and I kind of pulled it back some because I was scared that it wasn't going to be well received. Little did I
Right.
know the community is very different now than what it was 2 years ago, and I would
I
have probably
mean,
loved my original version.
yeah,
But I did want to make sure that what I put in there meant something to the story, and it wasn't just a lot of filler words just to make it a
right.
bigger book. So just making sure like I didn't put extra stuff in there that didn't need to be there. And my
Hmm.
beta readers helped tremendously with that for being like an extra voice. Because when you're so close to it,
Right.
everything feels important. So having someone
Right.
else from outside telling you like, well, I could do without this, like I needed that.
Uh, that you lived included into some of the chapters, or is it more like, all right, I have this creative mind going, and you just put this character in a certain situation?
I did take out some like a quite a big chunk of my world building.
Mhm.
um, just because I was thinking more on like a fantasy level of it and not like the dark romance part of it. And so I did filter out quite a bit of it and took out like a lot of detail about the city that I was envisioning because it didn't really give a whole lot to the story. I did still sprinkle some of it in here and there so you get an idea of the inner city vibes that this has included in it, but I don't miss it. Like I think I wrote it beautifully, but I don't think it's like lacking for not having it.
Right. So when you're writing, what is your setup for writing? Do you have music playing in the background? Do you just find a comfy spot to sit, have a blanket with your laptop, or what's the vibe for you?
I usually sit at my desk, which has gone through very many different alterations over the many years. But if I sit like at my couch or somewhere, I get too comfy and I'll
Hmm.
start getting, tired or something. And I'm like, I can't, if I'm at my desk, I'm in the mindset that it's time to write. And I always have to have music. Music is like everything, whether I'm writing or just doing something in general. I don't like the quiet.
Hmm.
And I feel like music is the soundtrack to life. And so I always have it playing no matter what.
Sure. So what exact music or which exact song do you have playing?
uh, I actually have a playlist on my Spotify that I curated
Oh.
for what I was listening to. And it's in my book. Like I have a QR code. It's like all over everywhere. So if people wanted to see it, it's got a good mix. Some of it's like more melodic, some of it's more like hard rock music, depending on like where I'm at in a scene. I will be that person who, if I'm in a scene, I will put a certain song on repeat and just listen to it to keep me in the headspace of what I'm writing in that moment. And it, most people are like, I couldn't do that, but it's just my method.
All right. So which song would that be that you kept playing on repeat more than others?
Um, Voices in My Head by Nerd Out. That was like a good one. Just because it kind of, my character, it's like a psychological journey and she's in her head a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and so, like, for me, kind of envisioning what she would be like and having her mental status, like telling her, like, well, you should be doing this, like the little devil on your shoulder,
Hmm.
But having her outside, like, caretakers telling her the opposite is kind of what helped me get in like her head.
Okay. Have you ever had a time where you're just sitting there and writing your story and saying, I have no idea what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And when that happens, I have to like make myself just go to a whole new section of the book and say, I'll come back to that part later.
Yeah.
Or else I'll just sit there for like hours just staring at it and like agonizing over what should be going there. And yeah, if it's not coming, there's no point in like forcing it.
Now, how many sticky notes, well, sticky note applications do you have open on your laptop right now? Be honest.
I actually technically is one, but it's my notes
Mm,
app from my phone because I have a MacBook, so it like coordinates and it has
right.
multiple notes in there. But I have one main document that's like my writing notes, and it has sections inside that one for both book one, book two, and book three. And I just
Hmm.
go to that section of that particular book.
Are you writing all three books at the same time? Like you think, oh, this is a great idea for book three or book two, and you'll just write out the chapter then.
I do the concept in the notes. I already had book two mostly started when I was in the process of taking down and redoing book one.
Hmm.
I don't have as much on book three. I just have it as like little paragraph notes whenever it hits.
Hmm.
So that's like in a small development phase, but book two was well on its way. And so I just would add extra little parts. And I love voice to text. Like it just lets you get it out of your head and write in there. And then you can just transfer it later.
I mean, voice to text, that's the key, you know?
Well, because it always hits me when I'm not at my computer. I'll be
Mm.
like stuck in traffic driving and I'm like, that would be great. And so then I would just have to like get my notes out. And, when you're driving, you have to be hands free. So the voice of text is like key to have.
Right. So, if you could summarize the whole book talk energy for your book, if you were pitching it to a friend over drinks, what would be that pitch?
Let's see. So Eve is my FMC that it, like I said, it follows her journey. It starts with her present day, but she reflects back a lot. And she's messy. She's chaotic and like destructive. And it does get her into some trouble where she has to decide, like, do I want to keep being this way or do I want to do like what everyone is expecting of me? And she makes that decision to do what's expected of her and to like force herself to tamp down what she really feels. And in doing so, I mean, she gets a good career. She's got all this stuff going for her. She ends up staying messy though. She dates her CEO boss, and it's kind of boring. She's like, he's the safe option, but like he's not what I want. He's not my end game. But when you have something that's easy, you kind of stay there.
Right.
And yeah, and so she knows this, but she's still going along with it because she thinks that's what everyone expects of her. And then she ends up catching the attention of a crime boss of the city who is very enamored,
Um,
and he
okay.
pursues her without her encouragement, and it causes some issues in her life. And there's a certain point where she has to decide, like, okay, am I going to stay with the easy option or do I want to see what else is out there and figure out who I am? So it's a fun journey.
Yeah, they got me hooked. Already hooked. Can't wait for the book to come out.
Coming out Tuesday.
So, is there any scene that you absolutely love, but you had to like cut it out from the final draft?
No, I didn't. I kept in all the ones I really liked. They were interesting, some more cathartic than others, some were just really fun to
Mhm.
write. But the world building is the only thing that I really kind of miss because I really liked how I described where they were because I feel like it gave you a visual of the atmosphere they were in, but it might come back a little bit more in other books.
You're just taking it out, holding it for a little bit. Maybe it'll come back.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not completely gone.
Right. It's
It
still
may come
accessible.
around.
It's still there.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So does your main character have like best friends in the book that she confides to?
Actually, her best friend is one of my best friends. So I
Ah,
wrote my best friend into my book and actually still used her name in the
yeah.
book. Yeah. And it's fun because she's gone through a change herself as I adapted this book.
Mhm.
And I got excited because I made a decision that she's going to have a bigger role in book two. And I've been teasing it to my friend, and she cannot wait.
That was my next question that you just answered.
Okay.
That best friend's going to be more prominent in book two, so you just answered that. Would
Mhm.
that best friend have a spin-off and have their own book?
I mean, that's never not a possibility. I hadn't had that like thought yet. But
Mhm.
I mean, if people like her enough, I would absolutely make a second or like a side book for her.
Maybe a little novella or something.
Yeah.
All right. Uh, if your main character was trapped in an elevator with a villain or masked stalker, how would they
Mhm.
get out?
Huh. Well, she's unpredictable. So, because she is kind of the villain character herself. So, she, depending on what the energy is, she might, want to join forces with them, or she might want to try to take them down, depending on how they were approaching her.
All
She's
right.
kind
Sounds like fun.
of, yeah.
Like, hear me out. We could
Yeah.
work at this together.
Yeah.
So, when this book is out in the world, what is the single biggest emotion that you want readers to feel when they hit that final page?
I want them excited for book two because like it is a journey for Eve, and it has had reactions of some people saying, well, like I can see where you're going with it. Or some people are like, I'm really into it. But like at the end of it, I want them ready to see where her journey continues. Because book two is my absolute favorite of the three. And I am having so much fun writing it because she gets to be more of herself in that book. But things happen along the way that also get in the way because, you have to have conflict in it or else it's not
Right?
fun. So, yeah, it'll be a really fun book. And I have some of my ARC readers are already like, is it ready yet? And I'm like, no. I was like, book one's not even out yet.
Do we have a title to the second book, or are you just gonna hold off on that until you're ready to like do like the arc reading and stuff?
I'm letting it come to me naturally. It'll still be Eve's something. I'm letting the story tell me what that something is because as of right now, it hasn't fully fleshed itself out yet. So we will
Mhm.
see.
All right. So we talked about the whole process, well, the process, how long the process took. Which part of the process was your least favorite, and which one was your most favorite of completing the book?
Um, Least favorite has been learning how much stuff there is as an indie author. I thought I originally wanted to go trad, and
Mhm.
in the process, I just decided like I'm impatient. I wanted it to be out there. I've already waited 9 years. I wanted people to like meet her and, get to fall in love with her the way I did. So I was like, I think I'm just going to go indie. And I feel like there's ways I can do it that's not going to break me in the process of it. But then learning how many different facets there are to being an indie author. And I'm still learning. Like there's still things I'm coming across. And thankfully, I have a great community on TikTok that's helping me with it. But every time I would like complete one task and then I'd find out, oh, there's like a couple more steps to, in addition, I was like, oh my gosh. And it would just feel overwhelming. But as long as I took it one step at a time and figured it
Mhm.
out, like it was fine. But getting the writing community that I have, like our author community is amazing over there. And like everyone's being so supportive and so helpful and we're collaborative. And that has been one of my favorite parts of like finding my people over on TikTok. It's been great.
Right. It's such a great community over there.
Mhm.
They really support indie authors, and I wish that, the traditional route would support indie authors as well. Either you do indie or you go traditional publishing. But
Yeah.
there's not a lot of push for indie author. What I've seen, because I've just started reading maybe 2 years ago, so I'm not well versed in the whole indie scene. I'm learning the same way as you are.
Yeah.
It's surprising things that happen. But I think indie authors should get the push and recognition of like, hey, here's my book. Let me know what you think, good or bad.
Yeah.
That
Well, the great
helps
thing is
the
we do
author.
have that now. Like,
Mm,
there are bookstores now coming out that are curating specifically for us as indie authors, and we're reading each other's books and supporting and giving feedback. And I think, and we have so many creators who are, strictly readers who are specifically only going for indie authors because they have unique voices that trad publishers won't let you, put out there.
mm,
So I think it's great.
yeah, it's fantastic. Um, so so let's learn about yourself and
Okay.
what your favorite reads are. So if you're not writing, you're just hanging around, want to read a book, which is the first book you're grabbing, and what is your whole reading setup?
So it depends on my mood. Right now, I am in the process of reading several of my friends' indie books,
Mhm.
um, because they're sounding amazing. So I've been really enjoying getting back into that. If I'm kind of in one of those places where I'm not sure what I want to read and I don't have something on my TBR, I revert back to my classics. I am a huge Jane Austen fan. I love her work. So it's kind of boring for some people, but I love her.
Yeah, I've never heard of Jane Austen. So what type of genre does she write?
She is so she's a classical writer from back in, like, gosh, I don't even want to date it because I'm probably going to be wrong, but she was an English author way, way back in the day. And so she does write complex stories for her time of like women in, like, I think it's the Victorian area. I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But their journeys of trying to find independence and not just be like, growing up to be married and things like that. So, like, Pride and Prejudice is one of hers.
Mhm.
Sense and Sensibility. Those are fantastic books. But her favorite of mine is Persuasion.
Asian, all right. I just seen that they're making a movie of Sense and Sensibility. Well, it should be coming out pretty soon, which,
There's several
yeah,
already out there, but yeah, they
yeah,
keep making them just because it's a good story.
right. A lot of these books are coming out with now movie adaptations,
Hmm.
and which fun question. If you had your book made into a movie or TV show, do you know which actors would play the characters?
No, because I feel like if we did, because I would love it to be adapted
Mhm.
into a movie, I would want someone who's not known. I would want someone who's all their own that like hasn't really made it big yet, so that way they can, they my character could be seen and not previous roles of theirs, if that makes sense.
Okay. Someone fresh, brand new, you know,
Yeah.
being Eve. Okay. All right. And audiobooks.
Mhm.
Uh, me, myself, I do a lot of immersive reading. Have you thought about doing an audiobook for your book right now?
I've considered it. Um,
Mhm.
if it gets popular enough, I may do it. It's definitely pricey to do it.
Mhm.
I have a lot of voice actor friends that I've made in the community. So I hear a lot of the voices, and I've heard a couple that I think would be really good for my book. Um, but it is an investment, so I have to make sure it's right and going to make it worth doing it. But it's not outside of the options that I'm looking at.
All right. Have you thought about voice acting yourself, doing
No.
narration? No,
I don't
not
like my
even
voice, so no.
that. So that's a hard pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a writing group that I'm friends with, and we get on lives. And whenever we're doing releases for their books, like we're reading lines from their books. And I'm just like, nope, mute. I was like, I'm not doing it.
Not even a try, not even a little bit. No.
Um, No,
Okay.
especially
Fair
because
enough.
theirs are way more wild than my book is, and I get
Mhm.
really embarrassed by saying some of that kind of stuff out loud. So I'm mousy that way. I'm like, I'll just listen to you guys.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, which books well, book collecting's the rave right now of like having the same book with different looks and versions and stuff. Do you do any book collecting yourself or not
Not
really
like
into
that.
it?
No,
No?
once I have my collection, I keep it small because I live in a really small apartment here in Seattle. So I don't have a lot of free space. Um, I have had to start thinking about now that I'm getting back into reading even more than before because I kind of switched over to Audible because
Mhm.
it lets me, be interactive and doing other things and not just sitting physically reading, even though I love a physical book. But I've started now that I have like friends whose books I'm wanting to get like the physical copies of. I'm like thinking like, okay, well, where can I put another bookshelf or how can
I
I
mean,
empty this one?
you don't need that couch right there. You can just put a bookshelf there,
Honestly, I have my couch over here and I almost never use it because I'm almost always here at my writing desk now.
All right. So, you're reading your indie authors' books. What are you listening to on your Audible?
My most recent Audible, let's see. I think I was listening to Fury Bound last. Oh no,
Uh,
my last one is actually my friend Addie's. I just listened to her release from the other week. It's called Chokehold. It's
Chokehold.
mhm. Yeah, it sounds like what it is. But it was fantastic and it was like a nice quick one to go through. It was really good. But hers was my last one, but I was reading or listening to Fury Bound before that.
Which I had to start. I finished Ironbound and it ended on a cliffhanger. There's one thing I hate the most is a cliffhanger where I have to forcefully read the second book because it's ended so well.
You might not want to read mine then.
And
You'll love it.
I figured it out that way because yeah, I read Fourth Wing and it ended on a cliffhanger. Right. And it was a good cliffhanger, but not one that I feel like, oh, I got to get the next book like immediately. Like, I could
Yeah.
actually wait and then read the next book later. One that really like annoyed me because it was such a good book and well written, and it stays in my head rent free. Literally, was Haunting Adeline.
I've heard that. I haven't read those yet, but they are in my TBR.
Oh, I mean, if you have any no-goes, I would definitely go into it very lightly because they are heavy, right?
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Um, at the end of the first book, you have to read the second book because it ends so abruptly and it literally pissed me off. Like, what the fuck? Like, seriously.
I've heard book two is extremely intense.
Yep. They're
So
intense for two different reasons, though, in which I was like, wow. It's so in the book is split into two parts.
mhm,
You got part one and part two.
yeah.
Part one it's heavy for one reason, and the part two is like, oh, this is way different than what I read in part one.
Yeah, I've heard that. So I've kind of been hesitant to read it because I'm like, I feel like it's going to take me out of the space I need to be in for my book at the moment.
Yeah, no, focus on your book first, and when you have free time, when you're like in between writing, then
Ready to be
go for it.
traumatized. And
Yeah,
just
definitely. 100% you're gonna be traumatized.
yeah.
There are some things in the first book I sat down and questioned myself like, why am I enjoying this? And
Hmm.
this is not, it's not, well, when you read it, it's like, wow, this is really awful. I can't look away, you know?
Yeah. I felt that way about one of my friend's books that I read recently too, which is funny because she's like the sweetest, kindest person. And you look at her like, you wrote this? Are you
Like,
okay?
is there something that you're not telling me? Do you
Hmm.
need assistance?
Yeah. But I mean, that's the fun of writing, is you just never know, and then you can take it wherever you want it.
Yeah, it's I've had more of appreciation for writing now ever since meeting my wife. She got me back into books,
Mhm.
and now she says we don't need any more books because we already have enough books. That's correct to an extent, but I'm going to a new bookstore after this. So
Funny. Do you have an idea of what you're getting at the bookstore?
I don't know. I walk in, I look around, and if someone speaks to me, then I'll grab it.
Yeah.
How about yourself? Do you do the same thing? Do you just browse around, or do you go for like a specific book?
I think it just depends on my mood because sometimes there are things that like I'm purposely looking for, because I'd rather go buy it in person than buy it online a lot of times.
Mhm.
But then there's other times where I'll walk in and I'm like, ooh, that cover looks interesting. What's that about?
Right?
Yeah.
You know, that happened to me once. I'm like, oh, this is interesting because it was a horror book. I'm trying to get myself into horror
Okay.
slowly because one book, and this specific book I'm going to talk about, really put me off so
Mm.
much that I didn't pick one up again.
Oh no.
Um, yeah. So it's if do you know Paul Tremblay?
Mm-mm.
So he's a horror horror writer. So he's like maybe a step or two above Stephen King.
Okay.
Um, in his writing, and it's like descriptive of horror. Like he's
Gotcha.
sometimes it's a little bit gruesome. Um, so I read horror movie, and the book was written. It was written as a book, but then there's some chapters are written like a screenplay,
Oh.
which I found interesting. Like, wow, this is like that has book aspects and like screenplay. So
Hmm.
it was really made interesting. And then I started reading the book, and I wasn't really getting into it. Like, I can't. And then it goes back and forth from reading screenplay reading the book. And at the end of it, I'm like, what did I just read? Something gruesome happened. I can't tell you anything about the book.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, I haven't picked up a horror book ever since because that
Yeah.
really, really put me off.
I'm not really a horror genre like anything, to be
Mhm.
honest. Like I used to read, I read a little bit of Stephen King when I was younger, and I read Dean Koontz. I liked his books, but even those, like, they just, I don't know, sometimes like they would stick with me, and I'm like, I don't need that kind of energy hanging on to me. So,
Right?
but like The Door to December from Dean Koontz really messed with me psychologically, and I was like, is this even? It can't be possible, but it was definitely one of those that messed with your head.
There's one that you recommend. It is a horror book. It's a paranormal horror.
Mm.
Um, it's called The September House.
I've heard of that one.
You should definitely read that one.
Okay.
It is more than just paranormal horror. It really focuses on the main character and the relationship between her husband and her daughter and what's going on in the house.
Okay.
So it's a really fun read. It's paranormal horror, but it gets you sucked in from beginning to end. So you're not just like being bored. I was not bored at all.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's a good endorsement.
yeah. So if I came to you, right, and say, hey, I want to get into reading, what type of book would you recommend to me for like a first time reader?
First time. So not knowing what genre you would want. I
Mhm.
would say there's a lot of really good fantasy books out there. So depending on like what your interests are, there's a lot of like, not, I don't want to call it like a Star Wars type kind of thing, but like they have Dune out and they have other ones, but there's some really cool indie authors. Of course, I'm not being a great indie supporter and remembering each of their titles, but there have been some really great books that have been put out recently that are quite interesting of a take of how things go.
Mhm.
Um, PB Holcomb has some books that sound like they could be a really interesting read
All
in the
right.
genre. So yeah.
That sounds good. I'll definitely take a look at PB Holcomb, right? You say?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Definitely take a look at that one. But last question before we end this, and I've asked this question to book talkers, authors. So do you, when you grab a book, right? Do you immediately crack your spine or do you keep it pristine?
I try to keep mine pristine. I
Yeah.
used to be that person who would stretch it and put it down, to hold my page. And I'm like, why did I do that to my books? Like, I want them to stay pretty.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, I've gotten many different answers. At this point, it's a 50-50 because it's not going to change either way. Either some people will like immediately crack their book or dog-eared or write
Mhm.
in their book. Others want to keep it as trophies.
That would break my heart to see it dog-eared. Like, don't do that to your pages. I think it's great that people like annotate and highlight and like almost read it like a textbook and like go in on theories and stuff. I am not one of those people. I probably would benefit because then I could go back to things that I was trying to remember instead of just flipping through the
Mhm.
book. But I'm not one of those people. I even formatted my book so you
Mhm.
don't have to crack it open all the way. So you can like open it just enough to read it and not have to
Yeah.
like really get into the spine to see the text. So
See?
yeah.
Well, your book is coming out this Tuesday. So just reminding people the title of the book, where they could find the book, and so they could follow you where they could find you.
Okay. And I'll even show it to you. So
Okay.
this is Eve's Dawning.
Oh, very
She's
pretty.
and she's kind of thick.
Yeah.
um, she'll be available on Amazon and Kindle. For bookstores, I have it available on Ingram Spark. I also, I'm thinking about putting it up on the TikTok shop, but I also do have my own personal website. It's called mbmccallbooks.com, and I already have it open for pre-order there. Right now, I'm only going to have paperbacks available outside of the ebook. I will be making it into a hardbook edition by the holidays, but I don't have a planned set date just yet because I need to take some time to really put into my cover.
There you go.
Yeah.
And where they could follow you?
I am primarily on TikTok. I'm at author Nat4 on there.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you and learning about your book, and we can't wait for your book to drop this Tuesday.
Thank you. I had a good time.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.